household right now.
Ready, everyone? She's smart. Good. Stop. 1 second. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Please join me in pledge allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need a motion to approve the agenda for this evening, November 13th. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to move this on to the open forum. The Greenville Central School District wishes to facilitate public access to meetings of the Board of Education and to provide an opportunity for public comment at these meetings. Accordingly, the open forum provides an opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts about topics on the agenda. An individual's comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. Additionally, comments may be emailed to the district clerk, Daphne Pearson, using the email pearsond@greenvillecsd.org. In order for an email to be read during the meeting, it must be received by 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting and state that the email is to be read out loud. Emails shall be limited to 600 words. Please note, this is not the time to register complaints that need to be addressed confidentially through the proper channels. Remarks that might be considered defamatory, obscene, profane, stigmatizing, or otherwise impermissible in public forums are prohibited and will be declared out of order. Board members actively listen during open forum, but may not immediately respond to comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Okay, do we have any emails?
We do. We have one that I received today. Good evening. I, Bonnie Hunt, posted a question on the GCS parents page about merging Cooksaki with Greenville for football. There was some positive feedback from GCS parents. As you may know, many teams in the Capital District have been very successful with the football program having schools partner up. I'm asking the board to please consider letting the Greenville students participate in the football program. Give these kids a chance to play. Thank you.
And were there any other emails received?
No.
Yep. Okay. All right, then I'm going to move us on to the presentations. The first presentation will be by Denise Wickham, Director of HPE and Athletics, for a fall update. HPE? Health and
Physical education.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
It's just easier than just writing it all out.
Correct.
Does this end?
No, I don't think so. Welcome,
Okay,
Denise.
hi. Well, thank you for having me. So we're going to go through a little bit of a review of what happened this fall. One of the things that you won't be hearing about is Scholar Athlete teams because those have not come out yet. And we just had our final due date for our grades for the 10-week marking period. I've also asked some of our coaches to come, and Miss Fabian was able to come this evening, so she will talk to you a little bit about girls soccer. So, fall highlights. Boys cross country. You'll see on each one of these slides kind of when the season began, you know, and some of the highlights. Boys, they won the Greene County Cup, and then they had 12 runners all together. First team all conference was Cohen Wilbur. Second team all conference, you know, was Caleb and I believe that's Canyon. And also I have here pictures of our seniors that are outgoing. So nice season for the boys and the girls cross country. Girls cross country had 8 runners this year. And first team all conference was Emily and Evelyn, and then Runa and Anna. And our outgoing seniors are up there as well. Golf, all conference selections this year were Jacob Miller and Eddie Ross, and they made the second team all conference. And we had a lot of seniors this year for our golf. But we had a lot of boys also on our golf team. Boys soccer this year, you know, they were the Patroon Conference champions, and they were Section 2 Class B finalists. And they had 15 players, and there were some JV kids that would come up here and there during the season and help out at the varsity level as well. Coach Russell was named Coach of the Season. outgoing seniors on our team. And then Joseph Davis was our conference MVP. Our first team all-conference was Harrison McEnany and Caleb Mata. And our second team was Peter Bruchkin, and that's Isaac McEnany there. Good season for the boys. Very exciting.
Hi, sorry. So Coach Kiefer and I coach the varsity girls soccer team, and I wanted to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to do that together. We were Patroon Conference champions. We ended the season 17-1-1, and we only had 6 goals scored against us all season, which was pretty awesome. We scored 118 goals, and we had 6 scored against us. And we won the Patroon Conference Championship, and we made it to the semifinals for Section 2, Class B, where we lost to Mechanicville 3-0. We did have 9 members selected to all-star teams. Ella Groupie was our conference MVP, and she's the Section 2 Patroon Conference Defensive Player of the Year. And then we had 5 more on the first team: Ella Maholland, Caroline Kosich, Anna Mata, Emerson Groupie, and Cameron Childs. And then Julia Reinhardt and Morgan Crawley made the second team Patroon Conference. And Ariana Good was named to the Section 2 Patroon Conference second team. We get a couple extra players. Section 2 gives us more players for an all-star team than the Patroon Conference does, so we got 1 more on that team. But overall, we had a great season. I'd like to thank Buildings and Grounds and the transportation departments because they really help make things possible. And thank you to the administration as well.
Thank you, Alina. Girls tennis this year, again, Patroon Conference champions this year, and they also made it to the Section 2 Class CD sectional finals, losing in the finals. Bryn Fitzmaurice made it to Section 2 singles quarterfinalist round and had a wonderful season. They had 11 players this year. Sharon Malcolm was named Coach of the Year for the season. Our conference MVP was Bryn Fitzmaurice. Our first team all-conference was Julia Motz, and our second team all-conference was Catherine Henderson. Girls volleyball made it to the quarterfinals of sectionals this year, and that's Class C. Classes are a little bit different for each one of our sports, given how many teams are participating in that sport. 13 players for girls volleyball. Conference MVP was Shay Lambersect. Our first team all-conference was Peyton Benjamin and Avonlea Parrish, and our second team all-conference was Olivia Hughes. And again, a lot of outgoing seniors on that team, so looking forward to seeing what Coach Hughes does next year. Demographics for this fall, varsity athletes, we had 94, junior varsity 28, modified 63. We had two students that APP'd up. Total participants was 185, and we have 16 coaches. Questions? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. All right, now I'd like to take us, move us on to the literacy audit update with Matthew Berkshire, Director of Curriculum.
Good evening, everyone. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. So thank you so much for your invitation to present an overview of the state of the K-5 literacy program this evening. I'm happy to be joined by Laura Calvino, one of the Ellis literacy coaches. Before I begin, I'd like to give a little bit of background on why we're making this presentation this evening. Back in June, there was some discussion at the board level about moving forward with a formal review of our literacy program. So I spent the summer meeting with vendors who provide that service and reported back to Mr. Bennett and Tracy the scope and the cost of what that work would be. We were quoted with costs ranging anywhere from $8,000 to $50,000. And so before moving forward with the external review, we completed an internal review, which included a review of data, input from instructional coaches, Mr. Mahan, Mr. Hilgendorf, and myself. This input was presented to Tracy, Mr. Bennett, and Angela at a work session in September. And tonight, I'll give you an overview of what we concluded from our own internal review of the K-5 literacy program. So, an overview of this evening, as always, we will connect this information to our district goals and our improvement process. Then I'll review our noticings, our recommendations, and a proposed timeline for responding to the recommendations. Grounding this work in the language that you're familiar with, our first district goal is that our first district goal is curriculum oriented, and that goal is for our students to engage in a relevant and challenging curriculum. Our internal school improvement process is centered around 3 questions. Where are we now? Where do we want to be? And how do we get there? We used these 3 questions to guide our review, and you will see them throughout tonight's presentation. So I want to start with where are we now? And some key noticings overall. So to begin with, I want to acknowledge that everyone is working very hard. Our students are working really hard in their classrooms. They're engaging with text throughout each day and regularly, and they have positive attitudes about reading. Our teachers have high expectations for their students, and they are working with the best interests of their students in mind. And our literacy coaches are leading the way and bringing in research-based practices to our classrooms. They support the teachers in curriculum planning, execution of lessons, and administration of assessments and analysis of data generated by the student work. I also want to point out that literacy data is pointing in a positive direction. iReady scores related to phonics and ELA scores from the New York State 3-8 tests most recently seem to be trending in the right direction. We'll talk a little bit about where we are now with foundational skills, so phonics and phonemic awareness instruction. Overall, foundational skills instruction is going well, and the implementation of the Really Great Reading program is on the right path. So I've shared a couple of images up here. One is the blue ribbon that goes along with Really Great Reading being ESSA Level 2 certified. Every Student Succeeds Act Level 2 certified. And that rating is designated because there is moderate evidence that the program has a positive effect on learning. Moderate evidence refers to the study and the quantity of the evidence that was examined, not whether or not the program had a positive effect on learning, which the research shows that it did, and that students who use Really Great Reading have a significantly higher mid-year reading scores than students who do not use the program. So in order for Really Great Reading to be a level 1, ESSA level 1 certified, they're just looking for more research that reinforces that idea that students who are taught using that program continue to make progress. Really Great Reading has also been reviewed by Ed Reports, and in the Ed Reports review, it earned the recognition partially meets expectations. In the Ed Reports review, it earned excellent scores in the following areas: instruction of phonological awareness, phonics, word recognition, word analysis, teacher guidance, which is the resources that the teachers use, decodable texts, decoding automaticity, and fluency. And the reason that it received a partially meet score is because the following weaknesses were identified: the quantity of letter identification practice, counting syllables, and missed opportunities to teach concepts of print. I think it's important to note that Really Great Reading has made improvements since this review was published, and they are actually currently seeking a second review from EdReports because they believe that the improvements that they had made would bump up the program's rating to meet expectations. So keep these noticings in mind. In a few minutes, we'll be touching on how we can move forward based on these.
Matt, before you move on,
Yes.
a couple questions. Would you remind me which grades Really Great Reading is
Yeah.
used in now?
Right now, it's actually being used K through 5. It will become Tier 1 instruction for K through 3, and then be used for Tier 2 and Tier 3 literacy intervention, as well as special class reading, explicit reading instruction.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the data used to, when you talk about data used to generate a ranking or certification level, that's for the program, data from testing that relies on the program broadly, not just at our district, right?
That's right. Thanks for asking. Yeah, that's data that was done independent research study in other school districts throughout the country.
Okay. One more question. How well can you, when you look at test results here over time, how well can you attribute changes in those results to this program versus a correlation? In other words, can you tell causation of improvement in scores if you're seeing that, or just correlation?
That's a really good question, and I think over a long period of time, you would become more certain. I think we're starting to see relationships on information that we're getting on our students that are in the primary grades and students that are being taught these skills as they're learning how to read. We're seeing improvement in our iReady phonics scores that are happening both in the short term and long term with cohorts of students who are using this. In addition to students, last year, students who didn't use it, and their scores were lower than the grade levels around them who did use it. So we don't have a long-term research study going on here at Greenville, but as you know, we're actively looking at our data constantly and trying to use it to signal which direction we're moving in.
Okay, thanks.
So if there are no other questions on that section, I'll move forward to looking at where we are now with reading and listening comprehension. The district's core program for listening and reading comprehension right now is the Teachers College Reading and Writing Units of Study. Teachers College Reading and Writing Units of Study was reviewed by EdReports, and it was deemed that it does not meet expectations. And here's some of the reasons why. That the level of text complexity was not appropriately complex. The materials and the tasks focus on strategy instruction. Many lessons rely on the cueing system in the primary grades. And without going into too much detail about the cueing system is what's at the center of the science of reading debates that are happening right now. It's a teaching strategy that research does not support. It's also been noted that the program lacks content-rich instruction, and it's not building background knowledge in a way that's carefully sequenced so as to build on itself year after year. This is so important because background knowledge is one of the keys to reading comprehension. So in addition to being reviewed by EdReports, the Johns Hopkins University Knowledge Mapping Project also reviewed Teachers College Reading and Writing Units of Study, specifically looking at knowledge reinforcement, and in their language, knowledge reinforcement is generally light. In addition, they noted that while the curriculum uses high-quality texts, it should be noted that the texts fall below grade level, creating a lack of rigor in the curriculum. Questions?
Yes. I was waiting. One, is this also K to 5? I don't remember.
Yes.
I know we've been told for it, but
Yes. Yep.
it's just, okay. And to what extent, I guess to what extent are we still relying on this? Is this still a core part of the instruction, the curriculum?
Very much so for reading and listening comprehension. It definitely is. Yes.
And this and the really great reading don't overlap, right? They're addressing different areas of instruction.
That's right. One of the Teachers College Reading and Writing Units of Study does have a phonics component, which we were using in some classrooms prior to Really Great Reading coming in. We've moved on from that and are now using the Really Great Reading. But the phonics being one area, right? Those foundational skills and that comprehension skills once those students learn how to read, and building comprehension skills as students are learning how to read and learning those foundational skills, a separate set of standards and a separate set of materials.
Okay.
Thanks for asking. So
Matt, I just had a question. What do we use for 6 through 8?
6 through 8 is really teacher generated units of study and activities. Core texts, central texts that teachers read together, shorter texts, and using those texts to focus on conversations in the classroom and to build up to, as a source for written assignments and essays and such. So the question being is, moving forward, how do we get to where we want to be? And there are some actions that we are going to be recommending that we take in the short term, and some actions that we are already taking in the short term. And that's why I'm lucky to have Laura here to tell you about some of those recommendations, about how we get to where we want to be.
Hi, thanks for having me tonight. So as far as our foundational skills and the Really Great Reading, we will continue our course with Really Great Reading implementation K through 3. We're phasing it out in 4 and 5 next year. But we will also continue with our Handwriting Without Tears program to provide that explicit instruction in letter formation. Some of our teachers are exploring the new handwriting component of Really Great Reading, but all others are continuing with Handwriting Without Tears. We will continue to plan explicitly teaching concepts of print, mini lessons, and reinforcing them in small group instruction and with individual students as needed. Again, we are exploring the explicit concepts of print lessons that are now provided by Really Great Reading as of September. And we will also continue in the K in first grade to use the Heggerty Phonemic Awareness Program to develop more complex phonological and phonemic awareness skills in our students.
Laura, what is the print mini lessons? Like, what does that entail, or what's involved with that?
Concepts of print, it talks about what a book is, like right to left, and what a word is as opposed to a sentence, those kinds of things.
What do you do when you get to the bottom of this page?
Right.
Turn, we go over here, we read to the top here. Those sorts of, those reading behaviors that some students get reinforced at home through years and years of reading before they come to school. Well, certain students don't have those same experiences, and we teach those in the foundational, as a foundational skill. And it's actually, Really Great Reading, that's not exactly its wheelhouse, right? So there is some in there, but not a ton. But actually, the Teachers College Reading and Writing Project does a pretty nice job of teaching concepts of print. So while one has a weakness in one area, there's a strength in another.
That's right. As far as the reading, listening comprehension, we've done a lot of work in this last year to remove out of the Reader's Workshop mini lessons, those mini lessons that are related to cueing systems. And as Matt said, there are some really great lessons in there as far as concepts of print and some comprehension, but as far as the cueing system, those have all been removed removed from our teachers' units of study. And teachers are continuing to eliminate those lessons, and they're prompting kids to use word analysis for decoding. And over the last year, we have also been working with teachers to revise those units of study to make them more aligned with their science and social studies topics. And this revision includes a lot of looking more closely at the text that they're using and making sure that they're complex and connected.
Now, starting to talk about more of a long-term end goal, where do we want to be? I bring it back to that curriculum goal, that we want to have a reading program and a reading curriculum here which is relevant and challenging. We want one that's based on the 5 pillars of literacy: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. We want a program that meets criteria for text quality and text complexity. We want to have materials that teachers find easy to use and plan with. We also want materials that build knowledge in a way that's systematic. And looking at resources and places to go about where we can find programs like this for building knowledge. So programs determined by reviews and resources from Johns Hopkins, the Knowledge Matters campaign, or Ed Reports. I think it's really important that I stop here for a second and stress that with where we want to be, we do not want a program that is a teacher in a box, right? We have talented and experienced teachers here. We want to have a curriculum that provides the framework of what to teach and offers some suggestions on how to teach a particular topic. But we know that a strong educator will bring their added value to the classroom. They'll bring in strategies from their experience, they'll bring in their personalities, and they'll bring in the knowledge of their students to the work as well. So in our end goal, just want to stress that teacher autonomy and teacher decision-making is an important feature that we want to sustain. We want to respect the professionalism of our teachers.
Question before you move on. If it's more appropriate for after the next slide, it's fine, but can you talk to metrics? I mean, I know that you've mentioned, say, iReady, and I'm sure there are other tests or measures you can use to look at how well the foundational skills are improving over time, but what metrics are you planning to work with for a baseline of where we're starting from? Mm-hmm. And also just see how it changes over time as you're making changes to the curriculum.
Okay. The next slide won't get into that. And in putting this presentation together tonight, I thought, data is part of this, and I alluded to that on one of the earlier slides. I feel that with the beginning of the year, middle year, end of year presentations that we do, there are very data heavy, and I did not want to go back into all that once again, but as part of our process, we would be looking at measures such as our iReady scores on phonics and reading comprehension, New York State test scores, as well as oral reading fluency scores, which is a measure that we just started using as we become more nuanced and experienced with interpreting that data, as well as any direction that we go in. A new program will have embedded assessments in it, and I think that's an important piece of a new program that really is missing from a program like Teachers College Reading and Writing Project. There's not embedded standards-based assessments throughout. Really great reading, we do get quite a bit of data from beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year assessments that are given, and those are used by our teachers regularly, and we use that data to inform our instruction as well as to see how students are doing in the long run. So there's kind of a shorter answer to that question, if that's okay for you, Jay.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. All right. So a timeline going forward. So how do we get to where we want to be? So if you look up here, you'll see a timeline that is not aggressive, and that's by design. This timeline is adapted from Ed Reports, and they've provided it as a tool to support districts as they work through curriculum adoption process. So here we are at the beginning in the late fall of 2023 in establishing the process. So I've already met with Ellis faculty in order to begin kind of building a team of reviewers and setting a purpose. Next steps of establishing priorities would include setting a criteria, setting aside, what are our values, what are we looking for, what do our teachers value in a reading program. Moving forward into the winter, we'd want to identify programs. This is a subset, right? Right now, there's dozens of programs we can be looking at. We want to narrow that down into a smaller group and look into those programs and see how do they meet our criteria so that we can narrow it down to what we would do in the spring, which would be a thorough study of 2 to 4 programs. By a thorough study, I'm talking about phone calls to districts around us that use them, getting anecdotal evidence from their teachers and administrators about how it's working, making site visits to schools that are using programs that we are interested in, seeing how they're working in real life, publisher presentations, and then looking at doing some kind of pilot trial lessons in our classrooms, see how they work for our students and for our teachers. Late spring 2024, we'd want to make a decision. And once that decision is made, we want to communicate it, and we want to make a plan for how we're going to get materials into teachers' hands and train those teachers during the 24 to 25 school year. The 24 to 25 school year will be extremely important. The key to adoption and proper implementation is going to be professional development for our teachers before they begin teaching it, as they begin teaching it, and after they begin teaching it. The materials are only going to be as good as we train folks to use them, right? And the target would be in the fall of 2025, a full implementation of a new reading program in K through 5 at Ellis.
So we're only doing through 5. Would there be any benefit? Because a lot of the curriculums go past that to kind of look at, maybe it's not for fall of 25, but a longer term than to see, because do we still want to be using units of study at the middle school? So that would be a disconnect for me.
Yeah, when I said units of study earlier, not Teachers College Reading and Writing Project units of study, but units of study developed by teachers, rather. I think this is such a heavy lift to go K through 8 all at once. Maybe a mistake. I think looking where we have right now and what was done prior to me coming in with Mr. Hilgendorf, doing a similar process to this and understanding that we had no systematic phonics and phonemic awareness program being used at Ellis, he set that as his first priority. Then the next priority is looking at what's the reading and writing, or reading and listening comprehension program looking like at Ellis, setting that, and then over time being able to look up and look very closely at what we're doing in 6 through 8. And like you said, Tracy, some of these programs do run K through 8, right? Some of them have branches of them that are specifically 6 through 8, and that that could be a natural extension. But my recommendation for now would be to focus on Ellis.
Great question, Matt. First of all, I agree with that, because I think the K through 5 implementation of a new program, the issues that exist, 6, 7, 8 may disappear because of the new, as the kids move through, if the program K through 5 is successful, you may eliminate issues that are 6, 7, and 8. I do appreciate the idea that you decided to do an internal review before an external review is bought and paid for. Even if we end up doing one, we'll know where we're at, and might start there. On your mentioned shortcomings on the really great reading program and on the units of study, I'm wondering, are we actually with the iReady tests and then the 3 through 8 tests, are we actually seeing those shortcomings in our students?
So,
And my question is, just so you can wrap it up, my question is, are we changing because of research found that these programs are lacking, but we don't really have those problems? Our students don't have those problems. Or our data shows that just like the research is showing, our students are having those problems and we're making an adjustment.
thanks for that question. That's a really good question. Part of this is making a change because the research is showing what we are doing is not current best practices. And I think we have a responsibility to be keeping up to date with what research is saying is best practice, and if it's suggesting that another program is not meeting expectations, then we have a responsibility to look at alternatives to that. But I think one of the things we've noticed about our data and our information, specifically with the really great reading, the improvement we've seen on phonics over the last 3 years since we've started using this, this year being included as a third, is that by bringing in something that was addressing a specific area of weakness, we saw positive changes. Our comprehension scores on iReady, they are lower than our phonics scores when you look at them in the grades that are getting a phonics grade as well as a comprehension grade. Our state test scores, while they do seem to be moving in the right direction, our comprehension scores on state tests are lower than we would like them to be, right? And part of that we know is, what's linked to comprehension is that background knowledge, and we know that the Teachers College reading units of study are really weak in that. So by having a reading program, and this is our thinking, having a reading program that's systematically exposing the students to content and getting them interested in what they're reading and making them excited about a topic, that we would be improving our curriculum. If I could sum this up, the old question at the kitchen table, what did you learn at school today, right? Well, under Teachers College Reading and Writing Project, what did you learn at school today could be, I learned how to tell the main idea of a story I read. Well, with using a program that really focuses on building background knowledge, the answer to that question could be, I learned about wolves at Yellowstone, right? And think about, the difference between those two answers when you got a 7 or 8 or 9-year-old talking to you about it. There's a difference in excitement there about school. And there's a difference in enjoyment of reading and in knowledge and wanting to learn more. And when I think about our programs here and what we want to bring in, I keep on bringing myself back to that conversation that I've had with my kids, and that I know that even classes that I've taught, I taught as a teacher with Teachers College Reading and Writing Project, I realized that, the answer to that question for a lot of my kids was, we learned how to retell a story today across 5 fingers. Different levels of engagement there for the kids. Harrison.
Mr. Berkshire, I have a couple of questions relating back to the beginning of the presentation. Can you describe a little bit more of what a literacy coach is?
Yeah. You'd probably do this better than me.
So I'm a literacy coach, and one of the things that I do is I work with all of the teachers to support their instruction. So one of the ways that I do this is we sit down together, look at student data, examine that data, decide on instructional choices that teachers can make, books, things like that, and they try things, we reflect on that, and they learn something new about how to teach kids in the area of literacy, and I always learn something new that I can carry on to the other teachers also. So it's a job where I'm learning with teachers, teachers are learning with me, and I'm able to share all that learning with all the grade levels.
Thank you, that sounds awesome.
It is awesome.
And also, the one program there, the Hegarty Phonemic Awareness Program, what exactly is that?
Do you want to speak to it? Or? Yeah.
So, phonemic awareness is the sounds that we hear in words. So, the phonics and the phonemic awareness, Hegarty, it's a program that the kindergarten and first grade teachers use, and they're just making kids pay attention to those individual sounds that they hear in words. So sometimes they're putting the sounds together to make words. Sometimes they're taking words and pulling individual sounds out. Sometimes they're manipulating and changing sounds in words, but it's all through hearing. So it's not a visual, they're not looking at letters or anything like that. But it helps them. So when they are starting to apply the visual letter to it, it helps them be able to be a better reader.
Yeah, those sounds and being able to manipulate and play with sounds and syllables, that's a prerequisite for being able to decode later on. Knowing how that all fits together in those word games, they build a foundation that students then learn to use those skills to pick words apart, put them back together, and read.
Thank you.
Matt, I just had one question. In looking at the 5 pillars, and pretty much the background knowledge will help address the comprehension and so forth, but where does writing fall in? Because reading and writing tend to have a yin-yang relationship, and so the more we can strengthen writing, it actually helps with the reading. So how do you see that fitting in?
I admit I did not go into too much about writing tonight, but the majority of new reading programs have writing embedded in them.
Okay.
So as we look at reading programs, we will look at what their writing component is. That will be part of our review and when we establish our priorities. Teachers College Reading and Writing Project. The writing project has, again, it has its strengths and it has its weaknesses. The writing units of study, I think, have probably still a little bit more clout than the reading units of study have, and that's something that we'll look at as we go through the process and teachers take a look at different programs.
I think that as we can look at it, I think one of the things that to me is important is a program that's broad enough, because we know that 30 to 40% of the kids have enough at home to get it, but we want to make sure that the 55 to 60% is also getting it. We're not leaving them behind. So that's where just with the background knowledge, like teaching them things. Not to detract from any one program, there are benefits to it, but what is going to give us the biggest bang for the buck for all of our students? Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ms. Galvino.
Thank you, Laura. I'm going to move us on to the discussion portion. So, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you for the fruit lunch program.
Yeah, so this is This is not working. Not working. This one here.
Okay, so I just wanted an opportunity to address the board publicly in this format in regards to the free and reduced lunch. We're excited with the opportunity. The state has changed up some of the formulas necessary for school districts to qualify. We had a couple of board members who were very quick in seeing the announcement, as well as our both Todd and Tracy in the cafeteria. So we were lucky enough to put together the application and get the approval for our free and reduced lunch for our students. We feel strongly that this will be a program that will, across the board, serve our students well. And again, we all know that students who have the opportunity to get their meals here will be successful and ready to learn. So we're just really excited about the opportunity to put that program out there for students at the beginning of November. So we're excited about that. Harrison.
Mr. Bennett, this might be a little premature, but I just want to clarify, this program is a grant from the state, correct?
The state has funded it, yes.
Okay. Again, this may be premature, but is this something that Greenville can see as long-term?
Well, we're hoping that we can continue to get the support from New York State. I know that that was a topic of conversation today with the Board of Regents in regards to some of the directions that they want to go. So we're hoping that they continue to keep this formula as is, and we need to make sure that people can still qualify, and there's certain paperwork we need to make sure that we submit to the state to make sure that we are at the point we need to be to continue to qualify for free and reduced. The question at the Board of Regents today was really, can we make this statewide for all school districts? Because currently not all school districts do qualify for it, but we are very fortunate in Greenville that we are able to address the needs for families.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yep.
So Mike, then the way it works is basically everyone participates in the program, so everyone can have a hot meal?
Yes, there's a couple of caveats to it too in regards to making sure students understand that there's 3 components to the lunch that they need to make sure that they're taking, and we don't want to have students wasting food, but at the same time, that's one of the key components to making sure that we are credited with the free lunch, is to make sure the kids are taking all aspects of it.
So for example, they have to take a piece of fruit?
Yes.
So parents, please encourage it. We need to take a piece of fruit.
It's a healthy choice.
Right, exactly. Apples are good.
I just want to thank again Todd and Tracy and everybody at the DO that worked on this, and also Sierra, because I saw a lot of stuff on the parent page and through this district page that really explained it well, and they've done a beautiful job with it.
Thank you. Yeah, and again, district office worked hard, and Sierra's done a nice job of making sure that we're putting stuff out there and paying attention to some of the questions and concerns that are out there.
So as of November, then it went into effect?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Wonderful. All right, now for the Lewis Solar Partners, the LLC solar agreement. Again, back to you, Mike.
Yeah, so this was just an opportunity to address questions. Last board meeting, we had the opportunity to have a presentation on what this could mean for the school district. And after that meeting, we were able to get a copy of the contract out to folks to have them set some eyes on it. We've got a couple of questions that were sent to myself, Tracy and Angela. But we wanted to make sure that we gave everybody an opportunity if they had questions. What we'll do is we'll gather those questions and get back with NexAmp and be able to get that contract the way we want it to read, to make it a little bit clearer on what exactly the numbers mean and what the numbers look like, and kind of lock in a couple of key points in regards to those numbers and making sure we are truly getting what we want. So I know that Jay had sent out a question that we'll get an answer to. So has anybody else had an opportunity to look at the contract, have any additional questions that we can forward off?
Yeah, Mike, I'm just gonna ask, I'm not gonna assume, Jeff or Chris Honeywell has looked at this.
Yes, Chris was on the initial phone call with the folks at USource and NexAmp, along with the business official from Coxsackie Athens, who presented all this information. So they had an opportunity, Chris did, to go through this. He's kind of been our go-to guy with solar, and he is behind the contract and the way this is working. It was somewhat new to him when we met, I think it was about 2 months ago. But again, once that contract came through, made sure that Honeywell had an opportunity to take a look at it, and then we wanted to make sure before we passed it off to the Board of Education, make sure they were okay with it. They were on the up and up, but we want to make sure that you guys have an opportunity well and ask any questions that you may have.
At the end of that presentation, someone had asked if there was any other local school districts that were involved with this as well. Have we done any follow-up with those?
Coxsackie Athens was looking to move forward with it. There were 3 or 4 different school districts, I'll have to get the names of them, that are have moved forward with this and are saving money currently.
I looked through the contract and I couldn't find that if it did or did not lock us into any quantity that we were responsible for. Do you know if we're locked in at any level? And then my other and last question is this exclusivity? Meaning if some other outfit down the road comes and offers us another deal, can we have both, or does this contract lock us out of that?
I believe there was some discussion around that. I can't off the top of my head remember, but we can certainly ask the question that if there's another contract that comes through with another solar field that want to be able to offer us credits if we tie in, will we be able to do that? Is basically what your question is. Yep. Okay.
And Mike, in looking at it, one of the things I just wanted to have a better understanding, in looking at Exhibit A, it talked about the 10.5, which was the savings, but it also referenced a 13.5, and I didn't have a clue what in the world that was. So if I could have that understanding, that was my one point. The second point was that it seems a little one-sided in that they can get out of it. There are like 3 or 4 instances that they can get out of it, and Greenville only has 1 instance to get out of it. So I just wanted to have a better assessment, which actually would tie into.
Like an escape clause, more than the one escape clause.
Right, like it's A, B, C, and D, where you can terminate the contract, and C applies to Greenville, but A, B, and D apply to the seller.
Okay.
For that.
Any other questions that you would like us to look into? Okay. Thank you.
So the timing on that, as people kind of think about it and mull it over, if there are any questions, please email them to Mike. The timing on this, what we ideally are looking at is if we are in agreement with it, once Mike gets us answers to the questions, then we would have it on the agenda for next month. Okay. All right. So let's see, now I'm going to turn it over to Angela, who's going to talk to us about the NISBA resolutions and her very thorough meeting, and we thank you from the bottom of our heart. And she'll explain what we mean.
You say that because you didn't have to sit there for 8 hours?
Exactly.
I should have known when everyone was so thankful that I signed up for this, that it was more than I believed it to be. So NISBA has an annual business meeting, and each board can have a voting delegate. I signed up thinking, I should do something nice and sign up for this. So if you don't know, NISBA is a New York State School Boards Association. They are a statewide voice. I'm reading this so I don't say it wrong. For the interests of public boards of education, they provide information, training, advocacy, and guidance on matters affecting school boards across the state. This affects, I think it's like 2.7 million students, so they do a good job. So anyway, every year there are resolutions. Each board can send in a resolution that they propose, and this year there were 52. And each one has up to 10 minutes that can be spoken about with the over 300 members that attended this meeting. So I thought it was going to be a 4-hour meeting. It started at 4 p.m. We got done a little after midnight. It was crazy. It started with over 300 people. By the end, there was, I think, 201, and we needed 200 for a quorum. So we were almost running out of people to be able to vote. But they passed 32, or wait, let me look. I actually did write this down. 35 of the 52 proposed resolutions, and they are on the NISBA website, as well as there is a link on the board corner for this month. And I think that's about it. Did anybody have questions?
Angela, were there any topics that had multiple resolutions, or what was the hottest topic?
Definitely the electric buses came up in multiple resolutions. The school lunches came up, just a lot. I wish I could go through it. This is the book of the resolutions. Like, it's a huge booklet of resolutions. I think some of them, basically, they can only be passed as written as well. So some you might agree with the logic of it, but if it wasn't written exactly perfect, it couldn't go through. So just, it's really interesting. I didn't even know what this position was because I think Duncan took it and kind of ran with it for many, many years. So just a really cool opportunity, even though it was 8 hours long.
Yeah, thank you for doing it, and for being diligent. I mean, you stuck it out to the end. We'll appreciate that. Thank you.
And I think one of the things that, assuming next year that we don't have 50-something resolutions, but there were two components to it, and part of the reason that we wanted to talk about it is NISBA lobbies. This is their lobbying arm, and the resolutions are basically canvassing and going through all the school districts to say these are the critical issues that over the next year our organization is going to be lobbying the legislators, the governor, and everything else for that. So I think that it is important. We, for next year, may want to factor that in earlier so that we as a board can have more discussion. I think every board member received that deck of all the resolutions and kind of the thinking behind it. NISBA goes through and there is a committee for this. So what they do is they determine which ones kind of make it to, here are the no-brainers, these are the ones that we are going to put forward to all of our constituents. But there's also another group that even if they haven't made it through committee, there's still an opportunity for boards to say, we believe this is important. So in previous years, it didn't seem to be as big a topic, but it does seem to be now getting to the point of what are some of the key issues and just making sure that we as a board are in agreement with the way that we're voting and so forth. So for next year, we may want to factor it in earlier and have the discussion. So that's part of the reason I threw it out there.
I think that's a good idea. I would support that.
Thank you. And now several weeks ago, we had the annual NISBA convention, and we had 2 people attending. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike and to Kelly Kubicki, who attended. And if you could just kind of do the meet and greet and tell us what it was like.
Yeah, so I'll, just again, I think it's a wonderful experience. I'm glad Kelly got a chance to go out to it this year. They offer a lot of sessions on a lot of different topics, as you can imagine. We spread ours out over like 3 days, where Angela got to do hers in 8 hours. But it's presentations through a number of different lenses, whether it be school boards, whether it be a vendor-led discussion, whether it be superintendents or assistant superintendents, and even having outside businesses, electric buses, as you can imagine. They had a couple of sessions in and around that. Then they had different speakers, and then an SED roundtable in which they got the opportunity to address some of the sitting members of SED's hierarchy and talk about different things. I went to a couple of different, and I've gone to these a couple of times now, whether it's through NISCUS or NISBA or some other agency. I tend to go towards more of the policy-driven or sessions that are going to talk about state ed and things that are going on through that. So I went to, obviously the roundtable discussion I found to be very enlightening. Jana Verona, NISBA's lawyer, facilitated that. The other pieces that I went to, an interesting session on investigating registration. There is a big movement right now with students who are moving, whether it's a rural, whether it's suburban, whether it's urban school districts, are really, fishing around for the right school for their children to go to, even if they're not living in the district. So I attended a session on that. There was a session on social emotional learning and working with our kids as they are coming to us with more and more different levels of trauma, whether it's homelessness, whether it's food insecurities, whether it is domestic violence, these different things that are going in, and how can we as a school district kind of wrap up our kids and get a better understanding of where they're at. A lot of work around the multi-tiered system of supports. I also went to a session from Mahaney's that really talked about how do we as leaders help to make sure our teachers are doing okay, and making sure that we are providing outlets for them to have opportunities to. I think that one of the things we've seen in education over the last couple of years is beginning of COVID, everybody loved and praised teachers. I think as COVID moved on and we moved out of COVID, it's been a different environment. We're seeing more and more people leave the profession, and less getting into it. Post-secondary education systems are seeing less and less students enrolling into teacher prep courses. Kelly and I had the opportunity to attend Questar 3 put on a luncheon out in Buffalo. We were out there. That was one of the things they talked about. There was a number of different districts there and school boards there, and talked about some of the issues that we're seeing. And it was an interesting, informative luncheon, but it was a good opportunity to hear what other school districts are struggling with. Chronic absenteeism is a big one. Being able to recruit and hold on to faculty and staff. Transportation is a big issue. And then, of course, electric buses. So all in all, just a very well-run convention, conference. Kelly, anything you want to add about your experience?
It was a lot bigger than I thought. I think I only saw you like twice in the whole time we were there. But I attended a more kind of informational sessions for me, since it's my first year on the board. I did a lot with the electric buses. I left with a lot of indigestion and nightmares, so we'll have to talk about that. I also attended a couple of sessions I really appreciated a lot of the sessions. The speakers did a lot of like interaction where we ended up breaking into groups with other board members or other superintendents who were sitting in. So you got to talk to people from different areas and different sizes of districts and kind of bounce ideas off each other. So there were a couple that I went to like that. And then some really neat ideas for the future. There's a district that has what they call a family support center, and they run almost like a community center attached to the school, but it brings in outside mental health professionals, and there's a very specific way it's set up, but it allows for a lot more back and forth between the district and the health professionals, and it allows the students to kind of get everything they need in one place. So that was a really cool one. I thought the Questar 3 luncheon was huge because I think it addressed where we are. It really did. And I really was appreciative too that they asked us what we wanted them to do for us, what we needed, and within a week afterward we had answers back from them and updates on some of the topics that we had written down, which I thought was great. More bus stuff. Met some very interesting people from around the state, like Queensbury, who know other people here. But there's a lot of stuff at it. The next one's next October, so and it's in New York, and it's a lot on the district. I felt bad because it's not cheap, but it was very valuable for the contacts we made and also just for the amount of information. So, thank you.
Thank you for going, Kelly. And Mike.
I have one question. You said there was a discussion or a group talking about absenteeism. Was that students or faculty?
This one focused on student absenteeism. It's a great question.
Well, thank you very much, because I think one of the things that is very helpful is all board members serve on 3-year terms, and the knowledge builds upon. So the more that people learn, the more productive board members you become. So I think it can be a very win-win situation. So for next year, if people, again, it would be in October, it's 3 or 4 days, I believe. So if people are interested, let Daphne know, and so forth.
Also, I just wanted to say, like, the more we do these things and share with each other, the more we just all become better educated. So it's important.
I would say that's the one thing I was kind of disappointed in. I wish I'd known it sooner, because the slide presentations and the different seminars were great, but I can't get those to you somehow, and that frustrated me because I really thought I'd be able to like kind of have a printout that I could share with each of you on some of them, but I'm still working on that, and I have a lot of screenshots on my phone. If anybody wants me to text you like 45 files, I can, but but there was a lot, I mean, pages of information that we're all going to need really soon.
So maybe part of the feedback in the survey would be
It was on my
links
survey.
for.
Yeah, it was.
Right, for that. Thank you. Let's see, now we're going to discuss the property tax exemption for volunteer firefighters, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Mike.
Okay, again, this came out of the meeting that we had with Angela and Tracy, with this starting to get to that point with budget where we want to start to look at whether or not the school board would like to go through this process and giving the tax break to firefighters and EMS. So what we did was we began with Greene County. Again, we're a sprawling district that serves 11 towns and 2 counties, to begin to get access to information in regards to who's currently doing it, which towns have adopted it, which school districts have adopted it. So the last 2 board updates I gave you, the 2 documents that Greene County has provided school districts, towns, and what the county would submit to the state in regards to where we're at with numbers. It's not easy to try to figure out. I think I will commend Greene County for the work that they've done. When Todd reached out to Albany County to see if they had anything similar, they said, please send us what Greene County has done. They were a bit further behind in regards to being able to give us the data that we were looking for, so that as a Board of Education we can make a decision on, which direction we are going to go with this. in those numbers, you see that they give you the basic percentages potential. Again, it is hard to give one number. In most every case, it was less than 1%. When we start to talk about that tax burden that shifts to other landowners and taxpayers. So we want to begin to, again, have these discussions to see where people's heads are at, what additional information that you guys would need in order to make a decision in regards to moving forward with the tax break. So, you know, it's had a couple of weeks now to kind of go through it. At this point, does anybody have any additional questions? We will, at Albany County, got some preliminary information just today, not nearly as detailed in regards to what Greene County's been able to do, but I can forward that off to the board as well.
That was basically my question, was when do we think Albany County is going to have the data?
Yeah, when you see the data, and Todd was able to get it from, Todd's at a conference, that's why he's not here today. He did forward that off to me, and so I will make sure to get that off to you guys. But again, it's not nearly as in-depth as what Greene County's been able to put together. But it gives us a place to begin that discussion.
Thank you.
I think it's just very vague. It's tough to make an informed decision. Obviously, I want to make it work, but are we taking, I know everybody's home values are different, everybody's in a different town and different counties, so are we talking a difference of increasing someone's taxes by $50, by $500, by $1,000? Like, it's just so vague, and if we could get kind of closer to that, I think, and especially for the general public to hear, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and again, I think in one of the documents, you do get an opportunity to see, you know, average, and again, they're giving averages, and I think when we're talking about unknowns in these situations, it's difficult. You know, just briefly taking a look at one, it's as low as $51 a year, but could be as high as $236. You know, if you're living in a village, a specific village. So again, it's difficult to. Everybody wants black and white. Everybody wants a hard number. We are not in a position where we're going to be able to do that for folks. We're going to have to give ranges. So.
Mike, are we held to a specific way of doing this? Are we allowed to structure it or work with our local fire departments to structure it a certain way?
I don't believe we have the opportunity to work with each individual fire department. What we will set as a school district, and then from there we'll move on.
And Mike, what is the timing for this? When does it need to, is there a certain date by which it needs to be voted on or passed? And is a public hearing required?
I will look into the details of the public hearing, and the timing of it is really based on when we feel comfortable in regards to what we've settled on. Obviously, we will need to make sure that we get this information if we're going to have it for this upcoming school year. We're going to need to make sure that it's done by, so people have a chance to vote on it and they know what their, you know, their taxes are going to look like.
Mike, if I may, I do know that the towns have to have that paperwork in by March 1st. So we would have to do that sometime in January. February would be kind of late. I would say by January, then it gives the towns time to reach out to the volunteer firefighters to be able to complete the applications to happen for next year.
Thank you, Daphne.
Mike, have you, in reference to Kelly's question and Angela's, have you looked at what other school districts have done as far as their creativity in this, or are they all basically choosing a percentage level and every firefighter gets that deducted, because in response to Angela's piece of information, if we're talking about I don't know how many fire districts would be in this district, and then they all live in different towns and villages, and their tax rates are totally different. Not only would the impact on the district, our district, and all the taxpayers, but also the benefit to the firefighter would be different also, and may not be level. I was wondering if just a strict dollar amount per firefighter would be a fairer way to go about it.
I'll need to look into that. I haven't heard that. Everything that I've heard has been based off a percentage, and not a strict dollar
That's easier.
amount. Yeah, yep. I'll look into that.
I think just one other piece I wanted to add is there is a restriction, I believe, they have to be a member for 3 years or a life member. It can't just be like a mad dash for people to join the fire company just to get better tax rates.
And I think that's where we have some flexibility, whether we can determine they've been in, registered with their fire department for between 2 and 5 years. And the board has some flexibility in saying, okay, we want people who've been there 5 years or 4 years or 3 years.
Okay, thank you. So, next item, we have the first reading. It's update policy 7140, the alcohol and drug testing of bus drivers. This is a required policy, and just as a quick reminder, the policy committee is going through and reevaluating, rereading all of the required policies and working with our lawyers in order to see if any need to be updated. I believe what was attached is a red line, and in looking at it, basically the main changes are to make it gender neutral. It really was the only major change on this one. And as I said, this is a required policy by the state for that. So next month, we would have our second reading on it. So if anyone has any questions, then email the policy committee, myself, Jay, and Dave, and Mike, and Daphne. And Matt, who's not here. There you are, sorry. Does anyone have any questions related to it or thoughts on it?
There's just one spot where I don't know if there's a correction missing or if it's, maybe I'm just reading it improperly on page 2. I don't know if that matters since it's a first reading. It says if a driver has engaged in prohibited alcohol or controlled substance use, will be removed.
Okay, where are we?
Page 2.
Page 2, all right.
Towards the bottom, if a driver has engaged in prohibited alcohol.
If a driver's okay, there we go. They will be
Yes, it's just
removed.
missing a
Yes,
word.
it's missing. Thank you, good catch.
One more, Tracy. A little further in the paragraph, the change, there's another change of she, he today, Monday, she, he today, but it's they has successfully.
Successfully.
Right.
All right, see, grammar is fundamental. All right, wonderful. We'll incorporate those 2 changes, thank you. Let's see, next on the agenda we have board priorities. Eric, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Last year we did this, and this year we decided to do it again as far as putting together our board priorities. And this is to foster an accountability culture throughout our district and so forth. I had emailed out on October 18th, and my fault for being so late at this, but I did only get half the board to respond to what their priorities are, and we're not throwing anyone under the bus. So if the other half can send their 3 priorities, then I can go back and if they're the same as last year's, just resend last year's email. That works too. Then I'll go through and finish putting together the priority list and so forth, and then we can have a discussion on what our 3 priorities will be. So we're halfway there right now. And I would like to finish this for our next meeting if possible. I don't know if anyone else thinks it's urgent, but I do. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see, Harrison, do you have an update or anything you'd care to share with us?
I do. I have a couple. Very positive. It doesn't really relate to anything that was brought up tonight, but I'll be happy to share. At the beginning of this school year, we've had exactly 17 colleges visit the high school for interviews for students, and 2 of those were community colleges, Columbia Green and Hudson Valley. And according to guidance, that's where I got my research. Hudson Valley in the instant admin, they had about over 20 students instantly admitted in one day. If anyone cares to see what colleges came, I have the sheets right here. It's also from guidance. Any other? I had recently read. It was on how well the students, particularly in the elementary school, did in the Wednesday's early dismissal drill. Sorry, and everyone, as I read, everyone followed instructions from adults very cooperatively, and it went off really well. And as I went about my day today, I too, I asked around, like, whoever I might have been in a conversation with, or at some point I'd say, hey, like, what do you think of Wednesday's, early dismissal drill? And all the remarks are pretty positive. And I did this with a variety of age groups. Like when I got on the bus this morning, I asked some kids. I interacted with some middle school students today, and some peers in my high school classes as well. So it was pretty. The remarks were pretty positive, and I didn't really expect anything less, because it's something that we practice every year, So I'm very happy about that. And also at this time, I'd just like to extend my thanks to the district office for everything they did in making the new free lunch program possible. I think it benefits all students and even the families here, so I'm very happy for them. So. That is all I must speak about tonight. Thank you, Board of Education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harrison. All right, and I'm going to move us on to our action items. Let's see. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of October 16th.
Jay and Angela.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve the finance reports for the month ending October 31st, 2023.
Eric, Angela.
Any discussion?
Yeah, although Todd's not here, shall I ask him questions, Mike, or do you want to try and answer them? I can email Todd, so, or.
Okay. Try it here.
All right, if we take a look at the board transfers, and for years I've been kind of wondering about that term, because it did change. It was called just transfers, I believe. Are these all transfers that occurred during the month, or are there other transfers that we're not seeing? I'm assuming that they're all.
These are the ones that occur during the month.
Okay. On the transfers, we're moving some money from middle school and Alice salaries to fund other things. I'm wondering, how do we have extra money in the salary line item?
I would have to have a better understanding of which
5 and 6 and 7.
That actually looks like it's more of a transfer from one account to the other, because if you're looking at, it's an A
I see the
2110
numbers,
versus
yeah.
the 2250. So the way that I interpreted it is it's the exact same thing, but sometimes it's lower down. Like SED will make changes to where they want things to be coming from. But-
Is that what it is, or is it?
I would have to ask Todd exactly to that level of detail, why the salaries are shifting in such a way.
All right, and then on the explanation clarifies the purpose of the money, which I appreciate, but let me take a second to see where this is. We're funding the interim principal with 5, correct? So again, we're finding money in a salary line item at Ellis, and my question is, I'll forward these to Todd.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. We've got this expense that has come up, and how are we paying for it?
Right.
And so what exactly, it could be the fact that we have not been able to hire a certain teaching assistant yet. And so we've been subbing it out at a lower level because we haven't been able to fill positions. I'm just saying that as an example, but that may be one area in which we have extra money because we haven't been able to fill a position. So, but Todd can give you the details in regards to what specific positions that maybe we, in some cases it is a matter of a retirement, and we've budgeted at a certain level for an elementary school. So a breakage point where we've hired somebody at a less amount than what we have to spend out, so we have some extra money in that budget line to do.
Breakage is, well, I don't know how we're doing it, but breakage is usually factored in during the budget process and placed somewhere. The other thing is, Mike,
But the one thing, just real quick on that, Dave, is we're not sure who's taking what insurance when they come in.
Right.
So there may be that wiggle room there.
Now that we have free and reduced lunch, we get reports on the finance part of our agenda. Are we gonna still do cafeteria profit and loss and all the cafeteria budget items, or how is it?
I believe that we will continue to report those out because, again, we're spending money and taking a look at how that's going to be reimbursed from New York State, how we're covering those expenses. I think we still need to make sure that we know how much the district is paying out through our food service. Tracy does a good job with that. It's been somewhat profitable, and it's been able to fund some of the things that we've done in the cafeteria, but we'll continue to.
When does the grant pay out? Did they give you any detail? No?
No.
Nice. Thanks, Mike.
Well, if it's
Did
like
you
other
expect?
things.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Well,
Dave, you've been in this business an awful
I would
long
like to have the
time.
money up front sometime.
Well, if it's like transportation next year.
I know, right?
Right, for that. But I think also, to your point on the recoding, when there is a recoding, if there can be just in the description, Mike, kind of what's driving the recoding, that would be helpful just in order to be able to read the reports. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I need a motion to accept the Committee on Special Education recommendations.
Kelly, Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the personnel agenda.
Eric, Angela?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the tax collector's report for 23-24.
Eric? Kelly?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the real property tax adjustment for 23-24. Or three, let's see, the following are decreases for the levy. You've got one parcel in Greenville to the tune of $382. You have, let's see, a parcel in Rensselaerville for $507, and Westerlo has one parcel at $468. And my rounding is off on all three.
I have Angela. Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the fire reports.
Kelly? Eric?
Any discussion?
There's a lot of them.
I was gonna say there's a lot of them, Mike.
It looks like a lot. It's really the certificates of occupancy and the paperwork that backs it up.
And I guess my question is, so is the certificate of occupancy issued every single year? Okay.
Every 11 months.
All in favor?
Aye.
Need a motion to approve the bid awards in the amount of $389.75 from Auctions International.
Eric and Jay?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the transportation agreement between the Greenville Central School District and Catskill Central School District for transportation of Catskill students to Questar Hudson and Catskill Middle School for the 23-24 school year.
Kelly? Eric?
Any discussion? So, Mike, I just had a question. So this is basically we are getting paid, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
We were able to help out a couple of runs.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the donation to the Greenville Central School District from the Greenville Educational Foundation Fund of the Community Foundation of the Greater Capital Region in the amount of $5,212.41.
Eric? Kelly?
Any discussion? I remember the days when the amount was 500. It's really wonderful to see just how much the efforts have grown for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I need a motion to appoint membership for committees, and we are adding Harrison to the DLT. No, to the District Facilities Committee, excuse me.
Kelly? Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor?
See you Thursday.
I'll be there.
It won't be 8 hours.
All right, so input items for future meetings. Does anyone have items? Yes.
Mike, we need to bring somebody in to start the conversation about electric buses sooner rather than later, please.
About the EV buses?
Yes, we have something set up with a vendor consultant. Again, Todd working from his conference. He sent me some information today that we'll meet, and then we'll look to bring somebody into the district. We are also having, I kind of put this out there a couple of times, that in-person Questar 3 meeting. We are having someone coming to our meeting on Friday. That's actually this Friday. We've been talking about it, seems like a month now. And that's the genesis of this conversation is what can Questar 3 do to help us and help boards of education communities understand what our next steps are going to be. So more to come. I would agree with Kelly.
And just the infrastructure, because the schools can plan everything, but in certain areas, there may not be the capacity, and that's to me what's scary.
I think even just the education behind it all, there's so much more and so many more layers to it. I mean, even the resolution that they passed at your meeting doesn't matter because there's other mandates underneath it. So even if the state reneges one, we're still in trouble. So we really need to get our heads wrapped around all that.
Yeah, it's coming, and so it's just a matter of how big and when. You know, we know the when, but just how big, so. Any other?
Well, since it's coming and the community is talking about it, can we put football on the table and just feel it out and see where it goes?
We can certainly do that. Denise has started some of that conversation with Coxsackie to get hard numbers in regards to costs. I know that it's something we looked at just briefly. We won't get more details on it. There's a lot of logistics things that we need to kind of work through outside of just the budgetary piece of it. Coxsackie Athens would be the school that we are most likely to investigate this venture with, but there's transportation, there's coaches, there's stipends, there's salaries, there's equipment, there's insurance. But we'll get more of that stuff for future discussion.
And do we have a sense of how many students have expressed interest in this according to by age group, so varsity, JV, or modified there? Because if I'm saying 10 students, I don't know, but it's 3, 3, and 3, then that is a different scenario, or 10 students that could field one team. So I think that having that age breakout would be helpful.
Yeah, and I think this is a topic that comes up pretty routinely in Greenville. I know that Denise has run a series over the last few years of surveys who would be interested. We get guys, we get girls. The surveys are good, they're helpful to help give us a base. Whether or not they're actually would make the switch if we got it, we don't know. But we can get more of that information as well by grade level.
Kelly, did you have a question? No?
Along the lines of that.
Okay. And then timing, is there a date by which it would need to be any type of merger or any type of decision? So it could be section driven?
Yeah, we would have to put in most likely request a section 2 for the merger of our sports teams. I'm not sure what that timeline would look like. I would be more concerned around the budgetary timeline, and we know as we begin to start that process, next board meeting we talk about the budget process, and then January's rollover, so it's not too long after that. We have to really start to hone down what the cost of these things are going to be. So between now and then, we'll certainly get information together for the board to kind of chew on in regards to some of the details, and then behind the scenes, Denise and I Denise will, we can figure out when that merger, we got to get it into section 2, those types of things, we'll get that information.
And I think what could be helpful is also trade-offs. We had a parent express an interest in assistant coaches or reimbursement. So does this mean it would be a trade-off with some of those requests, and how does everything fit together for that? That would be helpful.
Well, as the board is well aware, there's a lot of wants and asks that come both internally and externally when it comes to budget. There's hard decisions that have to be made. Obviously, we can't fund everything, so if we're adding things, we are still the keeper of the community's trust in regards to the monies. So we would have to, I don't know if the community is quite ready to spike our budget in such a way to support one thing or another. It's usually, in place of something else. So those are some of the discussions that we would need to have once we have a better understanding of what that dollar amount looks like. And again, I keep saying dollar amount, but there are other logistical issues. We have a lot of issues with transportation after school, with sports trips anyways. This would be a regular run down to Coxsackie Athens every single day. And then game days and things like that. So we'd have to think about what that does to our current transportation needs.
So it definitely sounds like there are enough issues to warrant having it added to the agenda, whether it's a presentation or something, to just be able to wrap our heads around what is truly involved with it.
Yep.
Okay. Any other requests for future meetings? All right, then just a couple of reminders. We have our next business meeting is on December 11th. Same place, same time. We have January 8th. We will start the first budget 1 for budget process is right around the corner. And we also have, let's see, our next business meeting then February 12th. And the last one, we were able to reschedule the workshop, and so please mark your calendars, everyone, for February 28th, which is a Wednesday at 6 p.m. And this is the one that replaces the Saturday workshop for that, so. Yes, Harrison?
Has there been an update on the Greene County Board of Education meeting? No?
It is not.
Okay, okay, thank you.
All right, so then I'm going to move us on to the closing open forum, and the same rules apply as stated during the first open forum. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Do we have any emails? You already read them, okay. There we go, thank you. All right, so if I could have a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss a personnel matter? All right, there we go. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.